In this video, we're going to talk about textures in materials in Unreal Engine 5. So in the previous video, we saw how we can manage the basic channels or the basic effects of the materials using simple values like a simple color or a value that goes from 0 to 1. In this video, we're going to use textures, which means that we're going to apply images so that we don't have like a uniform effect on a surface of a material, but we have an effect based on pixels. So this is a texture here that I used, and I will show you where to get it. So let's get started. And first of all, let's recap real quick what Pbr materials are. So Pbr means physically based render, and we already saw that the basic channels, the main channels here are the diffuse channel, the normal for the 3D superficial effects, kind of like a displacement, but this is a fake 3D. It's not real 3D like in a displacement, like this one here. And then we have the roughness or the specular. Now, roughness and specular, they are one the opposite of the other. Now, we're also going to talk more about other types of materials, not opaque materials, but transparent materials. So we're gonna see how we can make something translucent, transparent, or we can use an alpha channel to define here like a silhouette, or like it happens with leaves and trees and things like that. So you can see here the alpha channel has been used to create the shape of the leaf without actually modeling the leaf itself. So it's a way to make things a little bit lighter and not so heavy. So also transparency, it's about how the light behaves with the material and with the surface. So if it bounces back if the light totally bounce back when hitting a surface, that's going to be an opaque material. When it goes through, it's going to be translucent, and it's going to be also scattering that light inside the surface, and that's called subsurface scattering. If it goes through all the way, you're going to have transparency, and you're going to have also an index of refraction, which is the way the light is going to be distorted by the material. And if you think about water or glass, they have different index of refraction. We're going to talk about that later on. Now, even when we use texture, we have different types of textures depending on which channel we want to work with. So if we want to work with roughness, we're going to have a roughness texture. And usually this one here is more black than white, or well, it's pretty dark, because when we use roughness, the black means that you're gonna have reflections. The white means that you're gonna have a rough surface, so it's not gonna be reflective. And the opposite way goes for the glossiness. So if you have white, you have total glossy material. If you have black, you don't have glossiness. So they act just like the values that we see in the previous video, but here we are not using a single value, we're using pixels to guide the effect. So it's not gonna be uniform effect, but it's gonna be changing depending on the pixels. So you can have like scratches and really imperfections on the surface. So it's gonna start to look realistic. When you add some imperfection, it's gonna look more realistic. Now, when you search for texture, you can look for two main types of textures. The ones that you can repeat many times, and you can do the tiling and the repetition. So when you search this type of texture, you should use the word seamless. So you can look for texture and then add seamless. Okay. And then if you want to be more precise, you can type the thing that you're looking for. So for example, wood, so texture, wood, seamless. Seamless means that it's not gonna have a really evident repetition. Is this the seams between a tile and another tile will be hidden at best. So usually a good texture will be like this, flattened, without perspective effects and without things that are like lighten up or something in particular, like this one here would be repeated many times. So be careful about that. Don't pick texture that they have parts that are more in light and parts that are darker, because they won't work. You need to have, for the diffuse channel, this one here is the diffuse channel, you should have something real flat. And then you can look for example, roughness. So you will find texture for roughness. You can find texture for specular. Also, be careful about the size. You're always gonna have a size, and the size is in pixels. You should look here, the size. This is 280 times 280. Try to find like multiples of 2, so you can find like 64 times 64 or 128 times 128, and going up to 1024 times 1024, that's going to be 1k, or 2048 times 2048, which is going to be like 2k, and so on. So that's going to be better for the engine to compile and to calculate. And then we have normal. This is another really important one, which we cannot use with a single value. We need a texture, and this is different from the others because it looks purplish, and it's just going to be like, again, a fake 3D effect on the surface, which is going to make it look really realistic. Now, these are really the basic textures that you look for when creating a material, and especially if you are doing something that needs to be repeated. So you need to use styling. You need to look for something that is going to be seamless. So type always this word here. Now, the other type of texture that you may want to add is, well, any picture that you want, any image that you want, any photo that you want to bring, you can do it. It's just going to be a simple picture, a simple image. So you're just going to save it, drag it and drop it in the content browser, and then you can use it. So right here, if you go into RawPixel, is one of the websites where you can find free images. If you search for public domain, you will find a lot of these free assets that you can use. In my case, I've picked this one here, which is a painting. And you can use this, the single image, you can use it without repetition. So you can use it for a picture frame, for a photograph, for a TV screen, for a billboard, or whatever you need it. So this is an example of a repeated texture here on the floor. And this one here is an example of a single without tiling placement of a texture. So these are the two main categories: tileable, non-tileable, basically. And within this category of non-tileable, you will find also the unwrap texture, which use an unwrap mapping technique. So you don't have the repetition of a single tile over and over, but you just have a single UV map, which is this one, like this, and it's going to be applied onto your object. And this is what you usually find when you download, for example, assets from Quixel or from any other source. So this is an example of UV mapping. So you always need to check the UV mapping if the UV mapping is good on your object, otherwise it's going to look strange. And again, I definitely suggest you can use Substance Painter and Armor Paint to create those different Pbr textures that you need to define different aspects of the material. So where it's more reflective, where it's less reflective, where it has details. With the normal map, you're gonna define the 3D superficial effects, and also with the roughness and the specular, where it's more reflective or less reflective. And you also have some extra maps like ambient occlusion and cavity maps, but those are like secondary, less important. Okay. So for this example, I've downloaded this asset from polyoven.com. So if you go to polyoven.com and search for this cabinet, is the one that I'm using right here. So if I just go here, this is the main website. You go to texture, you go here, type cabinet, and this is the one. So when you're looking for textures on the web, you should look for complete packages so that you have the possibility to create a realistic and complete material. So you can see here, I don't have just one texture, but I have a complete package. I can choose different resolutions. So let's say that I'm choosing right now 2K, and then you can download. You can download